like you, be strong to hold the powers of the sun. To dream, believe.
Let's listen to Pavarotti.
Only one.
Hello, welcome to The Revealing. I am your host, Pavarotti, and I'm here to discuss the Idaho 4 case. Now, one of those docs that I went over yesterday, I read a statement, and you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong about the statement that I read, and it said, proof upon oath is not synonymous with the affidavit in the case has been submitted. I took that right away to mean proof upon oath is, oh, you're lying, Brett Payne. That is not what she was saying. And as I continued to go through the court docs, I came to a very real realization, and that is Ann Taylor actually has an argument on getting several of these warrants suppressed, including the first AT&T warrant, which would eliminate them all, fruit of the poisonous tree, based completely on a separate argument that holds water and has precedent, and she included the entire case with the precedent in one of the briefs. Let me tell you, she may have just checkmated the prosecution right here. We're going to go through it in this video. I'm going to point out exactly what I'm talking about, and I'll give you a rundown on all of the motions to suppress, and I'll show you which ones that I think have a real chance, which ones that I believe are actually going to be suppressed because of this precedent, and which ones, probably don't have a chance. And then tomorrow, I'm going to get into the one that everybody's probably waiting for, where it discusses the experts and all that. I mean, that's an important one, but I want to show you some real stuff in this one. And I truly believe that Ann Taylor has checkmated the prosecution in this case based on this. So let me show you why I say that. Okay, so I made this spreadsheet a while back, and I did it just so I could understand and keep in my mind all the motions to suppress that the defense were trying to get, and I wanted to make sure I understood which ones had sealed exhibits, which ones didn't, which ones had sealed objections and which ones didn't. But by doing this, that it's actually helping me out to keep everything straight as it relates to the motions to suppress. And as I've gone through all of the motions to suppress now, it's really given me a pretty good idea of what the defense doesn't have a shot with, what they really do, and what they, I believe, probably have great shots with that may actually checkmate the prosecution in this case. Now, the first two, the Franks and the genetic information, because they sealed everything related to those, it's really hard to get get a good read on it. But then the other ones, it's actually, I can actually get a pretty good read on those, and I'm going to show you why in this video. And we'll start with the motion to suppress the Amazon. I do believe that one is going to be denied. And the reason I say that is their separate argument for that one is a argument based on, again, signs of the times, and it's more of a nuanced argument, and Judge Hippler is not ruling on nuanced arguments, so I believe that one is going to be denied unless it is part of a fruit of the poisonous tree, then it couldn't be denied. In fact, that one may not even come into play in fruit of the poisonous tree because of the broad scope that they use to attain that one anyways with the federal grand jury. But then we've got the other motions, such as the well, here, we're just going to go through them individually, and I'll show you what I believe has a chance and why it has a chance, and I'll show you what I believe is going to be suppressed and why it's going to be suppressed. And I think Ann Taylor is an amazing attorney, and she probably sleeps 2 hours a night because she's doing so much work on this case. It is unreal, and I'll show you why I say that in this video. Okay, so first, we've got the arrest warrant, which is the result of the probable cause affidavit, the defendant's person, which that is the buccal swab of Kohberger's DNA they took in Pennsylvania, the search warrant for defendant's person, which is the buccal swab for Kohberger's DNA they took in Idaho the second time, which we can talk about that on a totally different video, the warrant for his apartment in Washington, and the search warrant for the Elantra. Now, I mentioned this in the last video. This is a simple argument, and they list all of these motions to suppress, and their argument is in response to state's objections to these defendants referred to the court, and hereby incorporates defendant's reply and defendant's motion and memorandum in support of Frank's hearing. Further, no specific arguments were made by the state in their objections to these 5 motions, thus no replies are necessary. So, as I mentioned in the last video, on those motions, the defense submitted on their motions to suppress long, detailed reasons why, on their own merit, each one of those motions should have been suppressed. Each one of those warrants should have been suppressed based on different reasons of merit other than the Franks or the IGG. The state did not argue against all of their arguments. They simply stated, see reply for argument of Franks and IGG. So the defense very smartly is saying there's no objection, so there's no reply needed. These need to be suppressed. If Hippler follows his own policies, that the prosecution did not make a written argument against it, come the hearing, that means the defense should be able to make their oral arguments, and the prosecution should not be able to make an oral argument because they did not make a written argument. Therefore, I believe all of these warrants have a possible chance of being suppressed due to that right there. Now, those are the possibles that I put in that spreadsheet a minute ago. Now I'm going to show you the ones that I actually believe that they're going to get suppressed, and it's due to some excellent research by, and I say Ann Taylor, but I mean the team, Taylor, Massoff, and Logsdon. Now, whenever I see these things signed, I'm seeing the ones that are really strong in Taylor and Massoff's name, and the ones that are nuanced, they always have Logsdon on there. So I think that's the roles that they've taken in this, is any kind of nuanced argument, Logsdon makes it. Any kind of real strong argument that pertains to the facts in the case, it's Taylor and Massoff. And most of these that I'm about to show you were signed by Massoff. So, I mean, she may have been the one staying up and only getting 2 hours sleep doing all this work. But as we go into it, let me show you. We get into, like, for example here, the motion to suppress the Apple warrant. And this is actually the reply to the state's objection to the motion to suppress. But it says, securing a search warrant after seeking privately protected information with a federal subpoena does not rectify a search in violation of the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution or Article 1, Section 17 of the Idaho Constitution. And here's where we get to where I misinterpreted in yesterday's video what they were saying. It says the words proof upon oath, which I took as you're lying there, Brett Payne, are not synonymous with the affidavit for search warrant is hereby incorporated. What she's actually saying is what they submitted with the warrant was a generalized statement that just said proof upon oath, and it did not include the actual affidavit that needed to be included along with that search warrant for it to be valid. And that is a very strong argument, and you can see right here, this was the Apple. This argument is made on several of them, and I'm going to show you how sharp these attorneys are. Okay, the next one is the pin, trap, and trace motion to suppress. And just in case you get confused what the pin, trap, and trace device suppression is, the pin, trap, and trace is the second AT&T warrant that was for 6 months prior. Okay, that's another way to say that. But you can see in this one, it says, Bryan Kohberger, through his attorneys, submit the following reply to state's objection to his motion to suppress a memorandum in support of the pin, trap, and trace. Again, you see these words used. The words proof upon oath are not synonymous with The affidavit for search warrant and its exhibits are hereby incorporated. A non-particularized general affidavit in support of a search warrant held in the hands of law enforcement, which never accompanied the electronically served warrant, cannot be relied upon to validate a warrant. Once again, it's the same argument. When they submitted the warrant for the second AT&T warrant, they did not submit the full affidavit from Brett Payne or whoever it was that was getting the warrant. All they submitted was a generalized statement of proof upon oath. And that is not going to fly. Now, that's the second one that they've cited that in. Now we've got the motion to suppress the Google searches. And you can see that, again, you see the words proof upon oath are not synonymous with the affidavit for search warrant is hereby incorporated. A non-particularized general affidavit in support of a search warrant held in the hands of law enforcement, which never accompanied the electronically served warrant, cannot be relied upon to validate a warrant. The warrants never directed law enforcement to exclude any legal information obtained in support of particularity. All contents of the Google warrants must be suppressed. So again, they did not incorporate their affidavit with the warrant they submitted. This is going to be big, and I'm going to show you why here in just a minute. But that's 3. Now we have the motion to suppress the cell phone USB file and memorandum. And you can see once again right here, they're going to incorporate the warrant was general and the affidavit was not incorporated into the warrant or served with the warrants or on the company that searched the USB file. That's the 4th time that they've made this argument. And then there's number 5, which I call Mr. Lights Out here because this is the first AT&T warrant, which is, if suppressed, everything's gone after that. And you can see once again, it says right here, the words proof of oath are not synonymous with the affidavit for search warrant and exhibits are hereby incorporated. A non-particularized general affidavit in support of search warrant held in the hands of law enforcement, which never accompanied the electronically served warrant, cannot be relied upon to validate a warrant. So that reply argument has been made in 5 of these now. Now let me show you what the defense did in one of these replies that pertains to all 5 of them, which is why I say these things may get suppressed, and this thing, I mean, they may have checkmated the prosecution in this process. Now, the reason I say this is an example of some brilliant lawyering is because once I realized what the defense was doing right here, I went back to the original motions to suppress and I looked at all of the arguments as it relates to these 5 motions. Nowhere in there do they cite the fact that a warrant without an affidavit submitted along with it is an invalid warrant and therefore should be suppressed. That argument wasn't in any of their motions. They literally, when you talk about chess, they filed those motions, waited for the state to object, and saved this particular argument for their replies. And I mean, it is a beast of an argument. Check this out. So this is the one we just looked at, and it's the defense reply to state's objection to defendant's motion to suppress a memorandum in support of the Google warrants. And again, here was the argument, the proof upon oath. Warrants were general and the affidavit was not incorporated into the 3 warrants or served with the warrants. The reason I say this argument is so strong is because in this particular reply, they attached an entire case file to back up their argument. And it's United States versus Pilling. And this case of the United States, it happened in the United States District Court in Idaho. So it's an Idaho case, and it is a strong case. Even though it's a district court case, it's not a Supreme Court case, but it's a district court case, so it's got precedent, folks. And this was the United States of America was the plaintiff versus Breck Pilling, the defendant. So the fact that it was the United States, and over here you had the United States attorneys prosecuting it, it's going to have a lot of standing. But the way this thing reads out, and they put the entire case, I mean, everything about the case history, everything in this thing. And they were trying to get 2 warrants suppressed, basically, in this case. One was an Apple warrant, one was a Google warrant. And you can see they're side by side right here, the Google warrant and the Apple warrant. Now, both of the circumstances for their arguments in suppressing these warrants were very similar between Google and Apple. And the only difference between the Google and the Apple is one of them, they didn't submit an affidavit along with the warrant that they submitted. They just submitted a, similar to what was submitted in the Kohberger case, a proof upon oath, generalized statement. That's the only thing that was really different in these arguments. And then when you go down here, I mean, they were brilliant. And I didn't highlight this. Either Ann Taylor or Massoff did. But when you get down here, you can see well, let's see. Hang on a second before I read the highlighted section. Okay, so looky here. Second, the supporting affidavit apparently did not accompany the Apple warrant at the time of execution. Consequently, as in Spilotro, the significant details set out by Agent Byrd cannot cure the generality of the warrant. So we consider an affidavit to be part of a warrant and therefore potentially curative of any defects, only if the warrant expressly incorporated the affidavit by reference and the affidavit either is attached physically to the warrant or at least accompanies the warrant while agents execute the search. Internal citations and quotations omitted. Viewed on its own without the context provided in the affidavit, the Apple warrant simply cannot satisfy the Fourth Amendment. The fact that the application adequately described the things to be seized does not save the warrant from its facial invalidity. The Fourth Amendment, by its terms, requires particularity in the warrant, not in the supporting documents. So when we go down here to the final, my thing went crazy on me. When we go down here to the final ruling in the matter, it is here ordered that Defendant Breck Pilling's motion to suppress is granted in part and denied in part. The motion is granted as to evidence obtained pursuant to the Apple warrant. The motion is denied as to evidence obtained pursuant to the Google warrant. The reason the motion was granted in favor of the Apple warrant is because the affidavit did not accompany the Apple warrant that was submitted to Apple by law enforcement. The Google did. Since the Google did, they denied it. But since the Apple didn't, they granted it. And Ann Taylor has an identical argument as this case, down to the T, and all of those 5 that we're talking about hinge on that right there. And they waited for their reply to the state's objection. And I think this right here, there's no way the judge can't read this case with precedent, follow what this case law did, and then find a difference between this and the Kohberger case documents. It's impossible. So, bam, checkmate. Checkmate prosecution right there. So there you have it. Now, I meant to get this information out to you yesterday, but as I sat down to work on it, the Idaho court docs were down for, I guess, probably a couple of hours. And it said in there the error was there was so many people on there looking at it. I think they crashed the system, which, makes sense. And I think that part is huge. Now, I've got more I'm going to go over with, because when you get to the DNA on this thing, and I've been saving that one. I'm going to go over it tomorrow. But the DNA as far as not having the experts and all that. That's a huge part of this as well. In fact, that's a hinging part of the case, and I've got some good info on that. But I wanted to get this out to you. I am going to get out the video tonight discussing the roommates and the data that I've compiled on it from all of your responses, and I'm gonna go over and highlight a few of your responses in that video as well. So I look forward to doing that tonight. Before I do that, though, me and Miss Pavarotti are about to leave out of here and go hit the gym. It's first of the year, so we've been on a diet since a couple of days ago. So, getting a little hungry. But we're going to be hitting our goal. We got some goals set by 1st of March, and when we set goals, we hit them. And that brings me to my last subject on this, because it's interesting. You know, I knew I was going to have a lot of flack at some point, and I'm getting it right now. And the reason that I'm having flack is because these folks out here, I mean, if you look at the things that I do in my videos, now they'll focus in on my theories in this case. I go a lot further than theories, though. I don't know of anybody else out there that's breaking down court docs, going in and actually studying DNA so they can talk on it in an educated manner, and digging into every little detail of the case. You see, these folks out there, what they want to do is have 3-hour conversations every night that don't really make much sense about, the frat boys did it. Or they want to come on like they're some kind of middle ground reporter that, only reports on what Court TV and Nancy Grace puts out on one hand, but then wants to report on all of those frat boy theories and all that on the other, and never have an opinion either way. Well, I am a really big hurdle for all of those people, if you think about it, because none of them are willing to actually do the research, educate themselves about the subject, and report some real things in the case. All they want to do is sit around and jibber jabber and talk, and if what I'm saying in detail is interfering with what they're saying, they have a hard time even making a video. I'm talking about these people are so insecure that they will stop making videos or having their discussions simply because of what I'm doing. Literally. That's how insecure they are. I mean, they will stop doing videos. God, why is he, I can't even do a video because Pavarotti just did this. Blows my mind. But I can tell you this, they can slander me any which way they want to slander me, but the proof's in the pudding. Go ahead and put the proof in the pudding. Do it by your research. Do it by what you're putting out. Because I can assure you, I can take an aptitude test scholastically. We can break out IQ test. We can break out anything that these people want to break out on a scholastic book smart level. And I will annihilate all of them, except for a few that are very book smart and very sharp as it relates to that. But if you break out some street smarts on those people, I will annihilate them as well, and they'll be lost as a goose. So the fact that they're not going to be able to compete with me, and apparently I'm taking their revenue from them, which is another thing. I hear these people talking about the revenue out there. These people sit around with their Cash Apps and their PayPals and their buy me a coffee and all this, and sit there and ask for money and donations. Give me a break. You go back almost 300 videos and you show me one time where I asked anybody for any money for anything. In fact, if you can show me one where I did, I'll give you $1,000 right now. Just show it to me. Because it never happened, because I wouldn't do that. People send me super thanks all the time, and I sure appreciate them for it, but I've never asked for it. You know what, folks? When you watch these videos and you see a little commercial, YouTube pays you for that. I mean, it's not much, but they still pay you for that. Now, I do offer memberships, and that helps support me, but I've never once asked anybody to join and become a member. You see, by me not doing that, it also hurts them as well, because that is their stick. And when you have somebody over here that actually does the research, educates themselves on everything that they can educate themselves on so that they can give you good information, well, that right there is scary to these lazy people out there that don't want to do that. They want to report on what the news says, what other people say, never have an opinion, or they want to say Pavarotti is slandering people in the drug world and all these people, putting them in danger. And they literally say that as they want to say Jack D, the Adams, all the frat boys. They literally want to slander these kids that have no criminal record, and they have no evidence against doing anything in this case. Now, they've tried to come up with evidence against them, and they've failed. Nobody's ever been able to connect anything from Jack D or any of the other guys to this case. And their arguments about the colleges protecting them is moronic on its own. Their arguments about frat boys on steroids is moronic on its own. You really believe, dummies out there that keep saying this stuff, that the University of Idaho would know who the unalivers were that have absolutely almost decimated their town and their university? Do you think they would know who they are and they would protect them and not get them under arrest to try to calm everybody's nerves? They would just leave them out there and continue ruining the town? You are absolutely ridiculously stupid. And do you think for a second that WSU, a school 2.5 times the size of the University of Idaho, would assist the University of Idaho in implicating one of their teaching assistants in order to protect some frat boys? You are absolutely a moron if you really believe that. But I digress. So anyway, tonight I've got that other video coming out to you. Tomorrow I've got a little bit more in the court docs, and we're going to dive into those. And until next time, please like and subscribe to the channel. Post your comments, thoughts, criticisms. Till next time, Pavarotti's out.
I was an ordinary boy until I broke the rules.